Life has dark times, dark seasons. There's no doubt about that. But we are not meant to live there. We are meant to always be moving toward the light. A few years ago, I was called to the hospital to anoint someone. And while I was there, I got a list of all of the Catholic patients that were there, and I went to visit them and comfort them and hear their stories. And in one room, I saw complete darkness. The blinds were drawn, and the man in the room was moaning in pain. I'll call him David. David was having an attack of pancreatitis, an attack of the pancreas, which I have since learned is one of the most painful things that someone can have. They tell me that it's one of the only ways that men can have any sense of what childbirth feels like, because it's one of the few things that's on that level. Well, the reason he had pancreatitis is because of his addiction to alcohol, and he was in agony. In between the moans, he told me a little bit of his story, and it was a dark story. Because of his drinking, he had lost a career as a chef that he was very good at, very successful earlier in his life. But that was all gone. He now worked at a minimum wage job in a retail store. He had a teenage daughter who would not acknowledge him or talk to him because of his drinking. He was pretty sure that he had lost the retail job that he had because he was told the last time he didn't come in without calling that that would be the last time. And he was scheduled for a shift that day while he was in the hospital. I asked him if he was married, and he said he was, but that his wife told him that she was not going to come to the hospital this time, and that if this ever happened again, she would be gone. He was deteriorating faster than he could lower his standards, and things were completely dark, even the room he was in. So I comforted him, but then I said this: you know, you're the only one who can decide when this is all done. You're the only one. Are you ready to be done with this? Are you ready for this to be as low as you go so that you don't have to go any lower than this? And he said, yes, absolutely. And he got my number, and he promised he was going to call and that we would be able to talk so I could give him some resources that would be part of his healing. But he never called. And a month later, I was back at the hospital, and there he was again, with pancreatitis. But this time, he had no wife. She meant what she said, and she left. It's a hard story to tell, but it's not that uncommon. A lot of us know someone or are connected somehow to someone who's been in this kind of story. And what makes it so hard is not just the pain and the suffering of all that somebody goes through in a situation like that. What makes it even worse, what brings the suffering to the next level, is knowing that on some level, we did it to ourselves. We're the reason that we're in this position. It was our choices that led to this. This is exactly the position that the chosen people were in that first reading. Exactly where they were. This reading covers a lot of ground. So by the time we start the reading, they already had squandered and lost so much. Their kingdom had already been divided in half, and the northern kingdom had already been conquered by enemies. They had already lost their nobility among the other nations. They were no longer the envy of the other nations. They had traded having God as their king for human kings that were corrupt and got them into trouble. And now they were not listening to the prophets. Jeremiah and the other prophets in the middle of this section of the scriptures are saying, you don't want to go any further. They said to the people of Judah exactly what I said to my friend David in the hospital. You're the only one who can turn this around. Are you ready to be done with this? Stop what you're doing. Don't go any further. Let this be the low moment, and then make the rest up from here. But we know the rest of the story. It's contained in the end of the reading that we heard. They didn't listen to the prophets, And so the temple was burned, the city was torn down, and they were all taken in exile to Babylon, where most of them died. Very few of them would ever live to know that they would get the kingdom back. The thing that made it extra awful for them is the exact same thing that made it extra awful for my friend David in the hospital. They had to know that they did this to themselves. Whatever suffering they were going through, it wasn't just random. It was directly related to their choices. So, have you ever been in that position where you are struggling and you recognize it's because of something you did? There's a relationship that's in crisis because of your choices. There's a family situation that's out of control because of an addiction that you have or some choice that you made. Well, if you've ever been in this position, if you're there now, here is the good news. It is never too late for God to deliver us from what we're going through. It is never too late. It is never impossible for us to have a miracle. But we need to know where the miracle will be found. It will not be found in the things that we have already lost. We are not going to find it in the burned down temple. We're not going to find it in the destroyed marriage. We are not going to find the miracle in the job that we've lost or the relationships that we've squandered. That is not where the miracle will be found. God never works through what you've lost. God always works through what we have left. The miracle always comes through what we have left over, no matter how small it is. The gospel is where this is proved to us. God did not send Jesus into the world to tell Judah that they deserve what they're getting, or to tell my friend David to stay in that hospital bed of his and suffer like he deserves. God did not send Jesus into the world to condemn the world. God sent Jesus to save the world. And Jesus is never unable to act. All he needs is for us to want it and to be willing to cooperate with the salvation he has for us. He's not going to shove it down our throats. He's not going to force us. But he did not come here to condemn us. He came here to save us. And if we're willing to leave that darkness that sometimes we just have gotten comfortable with and turn toward the light, we can receive his help and experience his salvation. It seems to me that this week that is the great invitation that we are being given in the scriptures. We are being asked, are you ready to be done with whatever it is that has been robbing you of joy? Are we ready to let go of whatever the losses were? Whatever we've lost, we need to cut the loss. We need to let it go. Our salvation, our deliverance is not going to be found in what we've lost. Because God doesn't work that way. The miracle is always in what we have left. So we're not going to get the marriage that we had back. We're going to get a new marriage. Maybe even with the same person, but a new marriage that is totally different. We're not going to go back to the same career, because even if we work in that job again, it won't be the same. We will be different. And it will be better because of where we've been. God is not going to restore what was lost, and that didn't happen to the chosen people either. They never got the old temple again. They had to build a new temple. But God dwelled in that new temple too. So, we are being asked to trust that it doesn't matter what we've lost, that that's not where God is at work. God is at work in what we have left. So let us be unafraid to let God do that work. And let us cooperate by turning away from the darkness and walking toward the light. We can't rewrite the past, and we can't get back what we've lost. But we can always start right where we are and write a brand new future.